Welcome once again to Art Talk Tuesday. We are completing the chakra series here. We are almost through. One more episode after this one when we talk about the crown or seventh chakra. But today we're going to talk about the sixth chakra. As you can see, once again, the dimensions are 18 inches wide by 24 inches high on this piece. Here in the center is the symbol for the sixth chakra. You can see that this lotus only has two petals. And when we started at the beginning, the root chakra had four petals, and then we moved up, and now we're back to two petals here for this lotus with the Sanskrit symbol in the inside. Once again, as we see with all the figures, this meditating figure is sitting here on a lotus. It is partially opened once again, and what we've got going on here is, maybe I should tell you about the title of the piece, and then we can kind of work from there. So this piece is entitled Insight, Knowing the Light Within. So what is that about? Because the sixth chakra is associated with sight, intuition, perception, understanding. So that's what we're talking about with this chakra. Now, one of the things we do need to get straightened out is that the sixth chakra is not the same as the third eye, and it's not the same as the pineal gland. The sixth chakra is associated, connected with, correlated with the pineal gland, but it is not the same thing. The pineal is an organ, actually. It's actually an organ in the brain that is shaped like a pine cone. It is a physical thing. The chakra is a matrix of energy, as all chakras are. So it is a matrix of energy that is located in the areas actually further back in the brain, not up here, but further back in the brain, probably above or touching around where the pineal gland is, where this matrix of energy would be. It is not the same thing as the third eye. The third eye is usually located more up towards the front in the brain, near the prefrontal cortex, and also usually associated with this area here. The sixth chakra is actually deeper in the brain, and it's also a little bit lower. So if you're talking about this area here for the for the third eye, then the sixth chakra is deeper inside, probably around this area if you go back. So that's what we're looking at here. So there are different things. I know most people conflate all three of them together, but they are not the same things. They're three different things. One of the ways that you can do this is through your meditation practice. As you get more sensitive to energy and how energy is flowing, you can tend to tell the subtle difference between the energy of the sixth chakra and the energy here in the third eye. One of the ways that I recommend that you begin to notice this is to think of bringing in energy from the back of the head. So when you're doing your meditation, bringing energy, sometimes, we talk about bringing energy up the spine, right? And bringing it back down, but instead bring it up the spine or imagine it coming in through the back of the head. And you'll feel it better there with the sixth chakra, where the energy is coming into the sixth chakra from the back of the head, and you'll be able to be able to distinguish that energy and that feeling from the energy and the feeling in the third eye chakra. In the third eye, because actually the energy in the third eye is much more delicate, much more sensitive, a much finer grain of energy than we have talking about with the sixth chakra, because the chakras are all matrices of energy, and so their vibration is much more raw. Even though when we deal with the upper chakras, the energy here is higher than in the lower chakras, the energy frequency is still much more raw than what you find going on in here with the third eye. So just try it. Let me know what you think. You can put something in the comments. You can send me an email directly at info@damonpowell.com. Whatever you want to do. Be interested to hear your thoughts and comments after you experiment with that, and see if you can begin to kind of feel and tell the difference. So moving right on, we're talking about insight. We're talking about perception. We're talking about higher knowledge. So if we're talking about the whole idea of sight, which is what the sixth chakra is talking about, we're talking about sight and insight. Both are passive. Sight is primarily a passive sense, as most of the senses are. It's primarily passive. If your eyes are open, then you have some type of sight. Now, the depth of that perception can vary based upon your focus and how much you're allowing in. But nevertheless, once your eyes are open, unless you're blind, you are seeing, you are taking in light. Okay, and that's what the whole thing about sight is taking in light. Actually, we don't ever really see anything. Everything that we see with our eyes is reflected light from the object that we're perceiving. We don't actually see the object, we see the light that it reflects. Not only that, we're also seeing when it comes into the brain, it hits the back of the eye, the image is actually upside down and reversed. So we're really not even seeing the world actually as it ever really is, which is something that we need to think about. What we take for granted as reality is really the construction in our brain, because it's not what's reflected out. It's what's coming in, being reversed and upside down, and that's how the brain receives it. So interesting idea to look at science and see how that works into the whole idea of perception. And we're not even seeing reality, but we're seeing reflected light from that which exists. Even the light that comes from the sun is eons old, light years, hundreds of thousands of light years old. So we're always behind, one step, 2 steps, 30 steps behind in our own comprehension, because this matter has to slow down from this high rate, and it begins to congeal into a slow enough rate to become physical matter, which we can sense. It's lost a lot of power. And so that's what we're looking at here. We talk about this whole notion of insight. The same way with the insight, if you are conscious in any way, then you are gaining insight, internal knowledge. The only light which we will ever really truly know and understand is the light that comes with inside of us. Because I said the light on the outside is reflected light. The only light we can truly generate is the light that we generate from within ourselves. Just something to think about. We're so concerned about what's going on outside. We need to be changing our orientation and really looking at what's going on inside. And when we begin to do that, we find another place, another area, depth of perception that doesn't require the physical accoutrements of the world for us to see and understand, because insight and sight is also about perception, and perception is about understanding, it's about receiving, it's more passive, and it's also about opening. As we open our eyes and begin to look more further, we're talking about the outside world. As an artist, I can tell you, you can always look, there's always more to see. You think you see something, and the longer you look, the more you see. The more in depth you see, the more detail you see. So there's constantly a state of unfolding. And as we take that inside and look into our inner world and begin to examine our inner milieu, as you would say, then there's always more to know, always more to see, always deeper that you can go. There's subtleties that we miss so much of because we're not taking the time to not only see, but to perceive, and with that perception, to try and understand. So that's what this chakra is really about. If we look at the figure here, you can see that she's in a full lotus meditative pose, sitting upon the lotus. Here we see her hands are in the mudra for devotion. That's what this mudra is. As you see the thumbs touching the heart here from a somatic standpoint, this thumbs touching the heart also helps to bring coherence between the mind and the heart. In this instance, the figure last week, she was had her head up and she was chanting. In this piece, we would say that the figure is visualizing, because the sixth chakra is about sight and insight. So she's not only meditating, but she's doing a visualization type of meditation. So visualizing, going within, devotion, connecting heart and head in coherence. And that's what we're looking at here. That's what I'm trying to portray. If you would see the pieces in a row, you would see that in the other piece, the figure was facing this way. In this piece, I have the fifth chakra, the figure was facing this way. In this piece, I have the figure facing that way. And if you were to put them together, going from the crown chakra down, the two would be facing each other with the fifth and sixth chakra. I just wanted that little addition there. So one thing I want to add about this is the actual color for the sixth chakra is indigo blue. It's a deep indigo blue. So with the fifth chakra, we had the lighter blue, the cerulean blue. Here we go to a deep indigo blue. Now the deep indigo blue is so dark that oftentimes we mistake it for black. Deep purples and deep blues we often mistake for black. The eye sometimes can't make them out unless we spend the time to really open up and allow that perception to come into the eye. Sometimes it takes a while. So what I've deliberately done here is make this blue just a little bit lighter, because when I got it too dark, it was looking like black, and I was like, okay, people are going to think that it's black. So what I did was deliberately back it off just a little bit so that you could see that it is a deep, deep blue. I've also indicated hints of blue here in the hair of the figure, hints of blue here, blue in the eyelashes. If you know anything about painting, creating artists, some of the best artists will tell you that you never use the pure black out of the tube, out of the can, whether it's acrylic, whether it's oil, even with pastels. You don't use the pure black, very rarely. You might use a little bit of, but you always want to mix your black to give it a deep, more rich color. The pure black is oftentimes very flat. It doesn't give you the look that you want. It looks more kind of comic book style. But when you mix the black with some purple, with some blue, sometimes some brown and green, depending on what's going on, the dominant palette in the piece of work. See, this is a deep, dark blue black here that I put in. So this is more of an indigo. But you mix it, you see what's going on in the palette, and you mix some of those colors into the flat black, and it gives you a much richer black, and the eye subconsciously can pick it up, and it begins to integrate the palette more fully so that the black looks integrated with everything that's going on, rather than as something that you pasted on at the end. Particularly, you see that often too when people are doing highlights. Some artists will do highlights and they just kind of throw the white on, and that's supposed to be the highlight. But really, if you just mix a little bit of some of the other color in there, just very, very light, it's almost imperceptible, but the eye will pick it up, and it kind of integrates the palette, and it makes that highlight look more integrated, more realistically part of the framework. So that's just another whole tip about painting. Just another thing. I've digressed. But once again, this is the piece, Insight, Knowing the Light Within, 6th chakra, insight, understanding, knowledge, perception, apprehension. That's what we're dealing with here. And so as we see even more deeply as we open ourselves up and become quiet and become still. Not only we see more deeply inside, but we see more deeply outside. And that visualization gives us power. So once again, these pieces are valued at $1,500. Prints start around $25. If you enjoy these videos, please share it with a friend. Please please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe so you know when these are coming out every week. And we're going to talk about the crown chakra next week, and it's going to be a good talk. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So thank you for tuning in. Shalom.